Well, it looks like we're live. It's official. And I'm using my built-in webcam. I was gonna use my Fuji cam, but I think I'm just gonna leave it because I'm only gonna be talking on here. You're only gonna see my face as the primary mechanism for a short time. I'm gonna wait here a little bit. I need to wait a few more seconds here before we start the real chatter. Okay, we're good to go. I think I'm just gonna leave the webcam on here because I'm only gonna be talking. It's only gonna be my sad little face for a short amount of time. And then we're going to dig into everybody's work. First of all, I just wanted to thank everybody who submitted work. We got tons and tons of submissions. There's no possible way for me to go through all these submissions, but that's actually a good thing. One of the things I wanted to say is a lot of the things that I'm going to mention when I'm breaking down specific people's work is going to be things that would apply to all of you in general. And that was a very specific thing. I want to make sure that even the people that whose work I don't speak about specifically, which is frankly the vast majority of people who submitted because there were so many. Thank you for doing that. Also want to thank the Blurb team behind the scenes. So we have Kara and we have Michelle and we have Air. Without them, we would not be sitting here because most of you know me and you know that there's no way I'm pulling this off on my own. Me over here, technology over here, giant void in the middle. There's some death ray that my body puts off that you all know that destroys cameras and compact flash cards and computers and calculators and everything else. So it would never work. Make sure that you are active in the chat. If you have a question for me, put it in the chat. There's going to be a Q&A at the end. And also I might just like pop quiz you in the middle of this and ask for a question or ask for something that ask for you to repeat something that I've already said during this critique. And I'm just sort of looking here at who's coming through from where. We've got a lot of the states this time. New Jersey, no idea, never heard of that, don't know where it is. Arizona, Portland, Scotland, there we go. Wow, not even Denmark, but rural Denmark. I wasn't sure you had electricity there, so I'm impressed, Denmark. Appalachian Mountains, I'm just gonna do a quick look through here. Canada, I love me some Canada. Belize, nice, very nice. Peter's checking in from Peter. I think you're Dutch, if I'm not mistaken, right? I might have gotten that wrong. Who knows? Anyway, so here's what we're going to do. I have a bunch of people picked out whose work I'm going to look at. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just, this might be qualified as a lecture, a little bit of a lecture here. And I don't want to be too mean about this. But it is kind of a lecture. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to move so I can still see my own little smiling face. I've got a half a dozen things that I want to talk to you about before we do this. And these all apply to photography, being critiqued, the kind of photography that you're submitting. And hopefully the goal here is for me to provide this to everybody. And all of these little tidbits at the front are useful, helpful bits of information. If for whatever reason you have not done one of the things on my list, it doesn't matter. I'm not holding this against you. So let's dig into these and then I'll start getting into the work. Number one, I am not here to destroy you when it comes to a critique. I grew up in photography in an era where getting destroyed by people was very common. People would crush you as a photographer and they would crush you as a human being. I never really saw the point in that. I don't think it benefits you and it certainly doesn't benefit me to break down someone's images in a toxic way. I just think I'm here to provide feedback. But here's the flip side of that. I'm not here to sugarcoat things either, because for the next hour, I'm not your friend, I'm your editor. And there's a big difference here. If you post your work online, a lot of times what will happen is you'll get single word responses to your work, and they're overwhelmingly positive. Amazing, awesome, killer, whatever, single word things. Or maybe if you're a total star, you'll get a 2-word response of, sick capture or something like that. The truth of the matter is that many of those comments are not even human beings, they're bots. And, overwhelmingly positive stuff with single, double words, it's not really that beneficial. So getting unique response back to your work is key. So my job here is to be your editor for the next hour, not necessarily your friend, because I need to be honest. And if something's not quite right, I'll tell you it's not quite right. And that gives you a chance to go back into the field and make it right by continuing to practice. That's number one. Number two, when you submit images anywhere, not just to me and not just to Blurb or anywhere else in the world, you want those images to be immediately identifiable with you. So in a case like this, putting your name on the files is essential, because when I'm downloading your work and I'm putting your work into folders, a lot of times when people were submitting images, the file names were just in, completely random file name and each one was different. So when those files are downloaded and I'm looking at them in a chain, it's impossible to identify who they're from. So just put your name on the files or put something that allows me to immediately identify who those pictures are from. And again, I know some of you didn't do that this time around. No big deal. Number 3, if I already know you and if we already have an ongoing conversation about your work, and that was several people who had submitted work, I know, and we're already having conversations about your work outside of the image review. This time around, I skipped your work because we already have those ongoing conversations. But that doesn't mean you should not submit next time, because depending on what you submit, I will definitely choose it and talk about it again. But just know this time around, and that was just an effort to be fair to the people who I didn't get to see last time. The next point is submit more than one image. A lot of you just submitted a single image, and it's impossible for me as an editor to try to gauge who you are as a photographer from a single image. Even if that single image is amazing, I need to see another one and another one and another one. 5, 6 images, anywhere in that range is a nice little picture package, a nice sample for me to get an idea who you really are. So try not to just submit one image. Okay, this one's going to sting for some people, but I have to say it because this is a conversation that's been going around, not just with me, but with other editors as well. And just to keep the chat lively, I want to ask, how many portfolios do you think, how many portfolios and projects, including the ones for this submission, how many portfolios and projects have I looked at in the last 30 days? Somebody give me, and it could be 10, could be 100. Pop in the chat how many you think I've looked at in the last 30 days. Someone, anyone. So yeah, I told you I was going to put you on the spot. So if you are submitting street photography, you have to up your game. Street photography is incredibly popular right now, which is a good thing. There's some good work coming out of that genre of photography, but there's a lot of people shooting street photography who are kind of all doing the same thing. And there's a randomness to it that goes a little bit too far into the random space. It's people on a street corner, people in a shadow. The judges, we've been seeing so much of this that there's not a lot of relevance left to it, which to me means that's not a bad thing. That's an opportunity. And it's an opportunity for you to find a way to put your fingerprints on your street photography. A lot of street photographers are emulating a handful of the masters that came along back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And those masters are there for a reason. They did street photography for a long time. They put that genre on the map. And so copying those kinds of people, there has to be something more. So if you're going to submit street photography, just know to really dig down into your files and look for something that is immediately identifiable as you as a street photographer, and not just street photography in general. Because again, did anybody guess how many portfolios I've looked at? Nobody. Oh wait, here we go. Anyone? 125, 550, 1,000. That would have meant like no eating. No, I looked at 254 portfolios and bodies of work in the last 30 days. And for street photographers, there were a lot of portfolios of street photography, but very few that were different or unique. So just something to keep in mind. The next point is avoid randomness. If you submit 5 images and they're all 5 completely different images from completely different scenes, again, really hard for me to get an idea of who you are as a photographer because they're so random. Think about taking one of those images and including 4 more that were around that same moment to show me how that you would compile a photo essay or a little package of images. The next point, we've got 3 more points very quickly. Film makes no difference to me whatsoever. So if you want to shoot film, awesome. I love film. I don't shoot it much anymore, but it was my primary mechanism for 3 decades. I love film, but if you're leading the conversation with the fact that you're a film photographer, it's kind of irrelevant to a person like me who's just editing the work. So don't over rely on the fact that you're making images with film, because ultimately the light and the timing and composition don't care whether it's film or it's digital. So just focus on the actual images itself. The last 2 points, write. You have to write. Some of you submitted your images with no copy whatsoever. So I have no idea. I've got no idea what the story is behind the images. So you have to write with it. Speaking of story behind the images, one thing I want to mention before we jump into the work, October 30th of this month, that's redundant, October 30th of this month, but I'm going to do something called Create With Me, which is another Blurb program. And this is going to be a live bookmaking session, but it's going to be a very interactive session, which is going to be me designing a book, but there's also going to be time, basically quiet time, for us to be you designing your own book while I'm continuing to design. There's going to be a lot of feedback between you and me as the book process is going on. So if you want to know more about this, the best way is to follow Blurb on Instagram and you'll know all the details. That's October 30th. I'll mention it again at the end, but in case I don't, there you go. So very quickly before I jump in, I'm going to take a question just because I can. Oh, wait, last point. Sorry. Last point, don't rush it. I got out of school. I got a degree in photojournalism in 1992, and I worked full-time as a photographer until 2010. It was not until 2007 that I started to look for book deals and gallery shows. So I worked every day as a photographer from 1992 to 2007 before doing a book deal or going to a gallery or trying to get into a museum ever even crossed my mind. And I think what's happened today in the modern photography world is everyone is looking for instant relevancy. And I think they're often looking far too soon. And when the rejection comes, it can be just stifling for people. So don't rush trying to get good. Being good as a photographer can take years, takes daily practice. I look at photography as like a physical sport. If you're a pro tennis player, you don't just show up at Wimbledon without training. You have to practice every day for years to get to that quality level. Photography is no different. So take your time, be patient, and enjoy the process. So there was somebody had, oh, this was a good question before we start. Then I'm going to jump in. How do you define street photography, the pedestrian type? That's funny. You made I know you knew you were making a joke, Vincent. That's a hilarious question and a great question. So there is a sophistication level to people who shoot on the street who do it well. And the sophistication comes in the understanding of light and timing and composition. So I see like two of the culprits that I see in street photography are often just people standing on a street corner and there's just a random array of people in front of them. The light's not particularly working through the entire image. The foreground, midground, and background are there, but they're not necessarily, there's no connection to them. And that's typically done by a person who looks at a lot of street photography or is part of a street photography group, but doesn't understand that the people who are good at this are able to analyze. It's almost like Tom Cruise in Minority Report, staring at that glass screen where you can see three-dimensionally into the scene. The Alex Webbs of the world, those folks can analyze that scene in 3D and understand where those pieces are moving. But the first thing they've done is identify the light to know that the light is working through it. And there is a level of sophistication to that work that goes beyond the pedestrian. And even recognizing that can take time of looking and sorting through the volumes of work that's not good. We all do that same thing when we're looking at our work. You have to cut. I just did a blog post about working in Japan. I taught a workshop there the last 2 weeks. I shot 1,305 images and I edited to 11. That's what it takes to be a good photographer, is that kind of putting that kind of discipline onto your work. So that's how I would describe that. Okay, I'm going to present my screen here because I can. Because I'm like, I am, after all, the one that's supposed to be running this. You know what I mean? So, okay. Hopefully, you guys can see this. And I'm going to do this. So the first person that I'm going to look at, and interestingly enough, it's hard for me to see private chat here. Okay, we can see it. That's good. That's what I wanted to know. All right, we're good to go. So the first person whose work I'm going to look at is Mason Walsh. Lou, don't know you, don't know where you're from. So nice to meet you. And thanks for taking the time to send something in. And Lou just sent a single image in. That was it. And there's no copy, there's no writing, there's no explanation here. So I'm a little bit behind the 8 ball on this one, but I like the image. And there's a couple of things I want to say about the image, but also about the work in general. So Lou, make sure that you put your name on the files so I know whose file this belongs to. And secondly, a little recap, a write-up of what this is would be very helpful to me as a reviewer. So I want to go look at this image here. This is a very popular technique of shooting black and white around the seascapes with a long exposure camera on a tripod. I love this style of work. I think it's very beautiful. If I was going to put a title on this kind of work, I would call it the Michael Kenna look. And if you don't know Michael Kenna, and it's Kenna, he's an English photographer I met 10 years ago, nicest guy in the world. Michael Kenna doesn't do a lot of seascapes, but most of his work's based around landscape, but it's the same technique of long exposure, black and white. I'm not entirely sure what this is. I'm almost positive it's a cappuccino maker, but I could be wrong about that. But I do like this. I like this technique. I don't know what this thing is, and that's where the copy could come in to really explain to me what it is. But here's the thing, and this, Lou, is a little bit like what I was talking about with street photography. There's quite a few people who admire this technique, right? And again, nothing wrong with this technique. I love it myself. I've done it myself. But what I would do moving forward is, one, submit more images so I have a better idea of what this body of work looks like. But two, try to find a way to put your spin on this. That could be adding things to the frame after. That could be making a print and then adding things to the print after the fact, like modifying the print. That could be adding multimedia or mixed material or something, if that's of interest to you. Because what you don't want to have happen is the work get lost in the field of photography. The best thing that any of us can hear when someone walks into a gallery and sees work on a wall, the best thing that you can hear is, I know who made these pictures. Without reading the captions or reading the write-up or seeing the advertising of the show, I know who made these because they are so unique. So that's really what I would look for now. Just based on the single image, I know that you understand how to do this technique. Now it's step 2, it's phase 2 to improve it even more. So hopefully that was helpful. Let me just double check here and make sure we're all good here. All right. I will take some questions here throughout, but I'm going to keep going because we got a lot to do here. Okay. Michael Graziano is the next contestant. And I will enlarge each one of these. Don't worry about it. But here's the thing. I want everybody to look at this work in contact sheet form first. This is very important because, first of all, with a body of work like Michael's, immediately there are some consistencies that I see that I like. Number one, all black and white. If he had thrown a color image in here, it would have immediately, in my mind, docked this essay, because I don't want to see, this is a documentary essay, clearly. I don't want to see color and black and white at the same time. It's too much for the audience to consume most of the time, so stick to one or the other. There's a consistency here, but there's also a couple of things. If you look at this image, and I know these are small, don't worry, I'll come into them in a minute. Look at this image, this image, this image, and this image. They are what I would call middle distance. They're from a similar distance from the camera. That tells me that that is Michael's engagement point for photography. This one breaks the rules, and it does so by bringing us a face up close and personal. That's a nice break from the narrative. It's a nice break from the middle distance of the other ones. So let's break in here. So we've got this first image, and I'm going to go through these and then come back to them. Got the second image, third image, fourth image, fifth image. Okay, so what I'm guessing is, and again, there's no write-up. So Michael, I'm like totally guessing what this is. It's clearly an essay about something. This could be your family. These could be friends. I don't know. The scene setter here gives me an idea of where I might be. This Lincoln hasn't moved in years. I'm thinking train tracks and bricks. I think East Coast America. And if I zoom in and look here, that could be a New York license plate, or it could be a Maryland license plate. So it's probably, could be conceivably the Northeast. Here's what I like. Look at the lighting in this picture. You've got moody window light. You've got subdued, overcast, gray muted tones. This is super moody light. I really like this. Look at this rim light around her. How beautiful is that? Look at the fact that the cigarette butt, he's puffing on the cigarette butt. So you've got the end of the cigarette is lit. You've also got a rim of light around him. That's called backlighting, rim lighting. That's incredibly beautiful. These parts of the frame fall off because they're basically irrelevant, because this is your picture right here. So conceivably, could you crop a little bit? Yeah, you could come in here a little bit like this and crop without losing really much of the atmosphere of that picture. But otherwise, I don't really have anything to critique about that. And this, again, moody lighting. This is not some overhead fluorescent light. This all fits part of the narrative. So the light has that same look and feel. I think overall, this is pretty strong. This makes me kind of wonder, what story am I looking at? Why am I looking at these pictures? What does this have to do with it about being in the Northeast? Is there something, or is just a bunch of family photos? I don't know. So again, you got to add the written component, because otherwise people like me get lost when they're looking at it. I'm always a big fan of taking a few steps forward when you decide you're actually going to hit the shutter button. So I think in pictures like this, you could have cropped a little tighter. This one's okay because it's giving me some good atmosphere here in the background. Don't really have much to say photographically in terms of changing your technique. I just need to see more pictures, and I need to see the written part of the story. But some really good bones here to start with, Michael. All right, Rachel. Rachel is up next. Okay, so I'm going to read this real quick. I'm an Australian coastal landscape photographer and most energized by aerial photography. Being an uncontrolled situation, you honestly never know what you're going to get with the images, so the post-processing editing feels a bit like discovery. I often go back and see images I completely missed. I also love surf, underwater, whales, and travel. I really enjoy sharing new perspectives. I take lots of photos in the helicopter flights, as they're not something I do regularly, maybe once every 12 to 18 months. Would love your feedback. The Italian bathers from the trip in 2022, and the others are from 2 flights over Sydney beaches, Clovelly, and Bondi. Okay, right there. I know who Rachel is. I know what Rachel likes. I know where she works. Now, there are things about this write-up. This write-up is informal, is what I would call it, which is good because I know Rachel and I know each other online. So there is an informality here. Things like, I take lots of photos on the helicopter flights. I would use the word photographs on the helicopter flights. Photos is a word in the consumer field. Photographs is the word you would use in the professional space. I'm nitpicking now, but that's the kind of thing. But my point with the written part is, now I know Rachel's Australian. She likes shooting from a helicopter, not a drone, which is interesting. That puts her in a very tiny minority these days. I love that. I love the fact these are chopper born, not drone born. And she has all these other things. So that's what the beauty of having a written essay or explanation. Let me go back. Just look at the 3 images right off the bat. There is a clear consistency of vision here. I love this. This is exactly what I want to see. So let's look at the first one. Again, these are beautiful color photographs. Aerials, I've always loved aerials. Most people love aerials. You have guys like Yarn-Artrus Bertrand, the famous French photographer who made a living shooting aerials. Rachel, this is in the territory, it's different, but it's in the territory of Massimo Vitali, the famous Italian photographer who doesn't shoot aerials, but literally builds a platform in the surf and then shoots back down on the people on the beach. He's an Italian photographer, very famous. His works sell for incredible amounts of money. And this kind of reminds me of Massimo. But again, look at the beauty of this perfect line across here. You have the repetitive shapes, obviously, of the water coming in for the tide. You've got repetitive shapes like this. You have the sea of color. I love the tonal range from here to here to here to here. There's nothing I don't like about these pictures. These are also pictures that have incredible sales value. These are bought by not only individuals, but these are bought by hotels and hospitals and everything else. So there's a lot of legs to them. I love this picture for a lot of reasons. I love the tonal shift between blue-green and red-yellow over here. That's like Fuji on the left, Kodak on the right. I love this sense, this line right here. The fact that this is yellow just really makes it for me. It just makes that separation pop. And then also look at this. Look at that. This perfect in the air running person at the bottom. This is a picture that demands to be studied. And if you have to stop and study an image, it means the photographer is winning the attention span battle. And that's what we're after. I also love these little legs and feet over here to the right getting clipped off. Beautiful image. And same with this. These are easy read, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way. Easy read, simple, colorful, graphic, powerful. This just makes you want to stop and like study every single person and every pair of legs that's coming out underneath. I just look at this and I'm like, who are they? Who are they? What are they doing? Why are they at that chair? You know, where did they come from? These are great. A really beautiful, this is the kind of thing, again, commercial applications. There's a fine art application here. So Rachel, just keep going. Just keep doing what you're doing. All right, let me just take a look-see here. Make sure I'm not dropping the ball on anything. Comments are rolling in hot and heavy. That's good. That's good. That's good. I'm not even going to look at them though. Who knows what they're saying? Okay, next up is Gilbert U. Now, this was from a street photography project that Gilbert did. And the reason I included this for all of you who submit street photography and those folks that I was mentioning before, when you're going to do a project on the street, you want to make sure that there's your fingerprints on it. Look how clean and simple this photography is. Look how cohesive, how consistent. Look at every single person, almost the same distance. The only one that's a little bit closer is this person right here. This person's a tiny bit, but look at this. Full body, clean, simple, clean backgrounds. You know, look at this. There's nothing distracting. My eye goes right here. There's nothing back here that's a jumble of people or anything else. If I go to this one, same thing. Absolute clean background, simple, nice fall off. Gilbert's using the right lens for this type of job. What you want is that fall off in the background so that not everything is in focus. Clean, simple. I love the gesture of the hand in the pocket and the fact that he's on a skateboard and wearing a suit. That's interesting to me. And then this one, again, interesting crop. I don't need to see the top of her head. I know that it's there. And I like this posture, this position. That's super solid. Again, clean, nice light. You know, look at this fall off. Again, that lens, wide aperture, fall off in the back, nice and clean. If this was all in focus, it detracts from the fact that what you're looking at is right here. Clean, simple, nice. And the same with this. Great posture. This, the flag is fantastic. I love the arm cross, the foot up. You know, I don't know if Gilbert posed these people, obviously asked them to stop what they were doing. But this is done well. This is a project done on the street that has a little more cohesion and more simplicity and frankly, more impact to me. And again, this is very different from someone wandering and shooting, you know, taking a vacation to wherever, Portland, Oregon, and wandering around the streets and shooting random street photographs. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. It's harder to make a body of work doing that than it is to do what Gilbert did, which is to say, this is going to be a series of street portraits. So I love this. I think this is effective today because I think as human beings, we all respond to portraiture. And just to run through these again quickly, I think these are, you know, there's not a whole lot here I would change. What I'm left wanting is to know who they are and if you engage with them and what they had to say. So if you had, maybe you ask everybody the same question, what brought you to this place in the city today, whatever it is, then I can figure out a little bit more about who they are and what their thoughts are. That would be probably the next step for me. But overall, I thought this was really solid. All right. Next. Oh, and by the way, let me go back one. Gilbert, I know that you said this was a street photography project. I think you said it was from Los Angeles, but I need more. I need more. I need to know why you're doing this and what's the point behind it and who these people are. That's the kind of thing that is the next time you come back. That's the kind of thing you should include. Rick just submitted a single image. And this was from a trip that he had done through India. And I included it because I thought it was a strong image and I liked it. So Rick did give a short write-up on this, and I think this is a pretty solid image. And again, you have a dynamic element here in the diagonal that runs through the frame. You've also got the secondary repetitive shapes here. You've got a third dynamic element here. The sky is not doing him any favors because there's no definition. There's no cloud cover. You know, that's not obviously something you can control. So there's not much you can do about that. But, you know, a nice stormy, cloudy day would have made this even nicer. The other thing, too, is look at where the light's coming from. The light is hard from the right. I love directional light. I love this adds dimension. And also if he was shooting color, this would add color to the frame because you can tell that the light is fairly late in the day based on how hard the shadows are to the left side. I like some of these lines down here. I like this hole in the wall. Again, repetitive shapes that sort of mimic up here off the top. Again, simple but clean. And the fact that this covering is flying off to the left-hand side really makes that. It feels like this person is about to get blown left and completely out of the frame. But again, Rick, throw me a bone here. You got to submit more pictures, because if you made a trip through India and you've only uploaded or sent me one picture, it's impossible for me to gauge sort of where you're at as a photographer, or maybe offer suggestions on what you might think about doing next. So just submit more images, and also give me some more writing. So Lynn, let's take a look at Lynn here. Lynn submitted one photograph only. And I kind of felt like with Lynn, there was a sense of guilt that she had only, she had only submitted one image, and also made a comment about, well, if I crop, the image starts to get soft. And my point to Lynn is, you don't need to crop. This image is completely fine the way it is. In fact, I like seeing the context of where we are. I like seeing the background here. You don't need to crop. This is obviously an easily readable photograph of dolphins dolphins are surfing. I mean, if you're going to get a job and it's not the job you have right now, getting the job of being a dolphin seems like a pretty good gig. So if I could surf all day wherever this is, I would be more than happy. This is a beautiful image, and this is a commercial image. This has marketing. This has marketing potential. This has print sale potential. Just got off the phone with a guy who sells prints all the time to hospitals and law firms and everything else. And he shoots a lot of pictures that look just like this. He's not like me shooting a bunch of weird black and white documentary pictures that no one wants. This is a viable picture. You know, if you have a large enough file size and you wanted to crop in, you know, and do something like this later, you could. And chances are with a modern digital camera, you have enough file to do that. But otherwise, a beautiful photo, simple. And again, when you're submitting, own it, but give me more information. I want to know where that was shot and why. All right, so let me have another look here. Make sure the chat's going swimmingly. Is anyone trying to get me? No, I think we're going well here. That's good. All right. So Mark Greenway. All right, let's have a look at. Let me shrink these down a bit so we can see them all at the same time. Now, if you're on Instagram, you probably can't see any of those at once. But hey, nothing I can do. Okay, so Mark sent these. No write-up. So I think we're looking at, I don't know, what housing developments. No, not really. Okay, immediately look at these images. To me, there's one that doesn't belong. There's four that fit together nicely that I like, actually. They're kind of in the tradition of the Beckers. And if you don't know the Beckers, you can look them up. Famous photography duo, want to say from Germany, actually. Very Becker-like with image 1, 2, 3, and 4. This one for me feels a bit like an outlier because these are clear structures, non-people, bold, simple, clean structures. And this one gets a little more complicated with this figure. But let's just take a look at the first one. Simple stone foundation here. There's nothing in the United States that's old. This can't be in the US. Impossible. Anyway, simple, clean, boom. Love the backlit. This is about structure and light. I love the flare that he's getting through here. You know, the geeks out there might be like, oh, technically that's a flaw. You're getting flare and you've got this little thing here. I don't care. I'm not a geek. I like it. It adds drama and it breaks up this black. And also, by the way, there's just enough detail in the dark that I can still see it. So nice frame. Same with hang on a sec. Let me cancel that. Same with this one. Clean, simple. Look at how dark those shadows are and that form. That's a beautiful frame. That's probably my favorite. This one I would say is B level. If this is an A and this is an A and this is an A, that's a B. It doesn't hold the same power with me that the other three do. And this one doesn't necessarily belong. I look at this and I'm like, my eye goes as much to what's happening back. Whoops. My eye goes as much to what's happening here. And then I don't know if that's like an actual human. This is done as like a weird kind of scale thing, or now it's about this. I don't really know. This is the one that I would lose, and I would continue working in the tradition of the first three. And again, give me some copy. Let me know what I'm looking at. Let me know why you're shooting this. Let me know where these are so that I have more context. All righty, moving on to Ken Anderson. I think Ken Anderson was a famous quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals back in the 1970s, back when they wore just like the single face bar, when everyone was out of their minds. Okay, this very similar. Ken's work is similar to Mark's work. Structure. Let's open these up and have a look. So these are abandoned gravel mines, if I remember correctly. So this is nice. I like this. Look at the light. This is not, he could have shot this at 12 noon, but he didn't. He shot at a time when you're getting some shadows through there. Adds to the nice. Love this. I love the pulled back feeling. However, right here, that bush isn't doing you any good. That bush, this right here, is not doing you any favors. It pulls my attention away from this, and that's what your primary subject is. I would do a little crop on that. I love this picture. I think it's great. Again, dynamic element right here, dynamic element here, dynamic element here. And I love the fact that you're not on top of that building. You're giving me some environmental space around it. I like that a lot. And same with this. Love this. No. Now you're introducing a human into the story. I'm like, wait a minute. This is so sparse and so nice and so void of humanity. It feels like a graveyard in some weird, an industrial graveyard. And then there's a person. So if there's another theme that's about the person, or the person is, I don't know, maybe her grandfather worked at the gravel pit. Sure. But unless I have that and know that, then this picture to me is a distraction, because now I'm like, oh, who is that? And why is there a person suddenly in all, is this, you know, it could be your assistant for all I know. So as of right now, this is the one I would eliminate. I would eliminate that, and I would keep these, and I would keep working on the theme. I like them. Simple, strong, graphic. I think the light you're shooting in is good. I would even push that as far as I could, and I would go with those last, 30 minutes of daylight to get the hardest shadows I possibly could, the most dramatic shadows I possibly could, and keep going back until you build a body of work, and then write something good. If these are abandoned gravel mines or gravel pits, talk about why they're abandoned. What happened? Where did the gravel start to come from if it's not coming from here? But overall, nice job. Okay, Selma submitted 2 images, grand total of 2, holding out on me. That's okay. I'm not going to hold it against you. But, and the only written information I have is a ceramicist emptying his kiln in Iran and a solo luncheon against marble in Pakistan. So let's start with this one. Now, this is what I like this image, and there's a couple of things here that are good. This makes me realize that Selma is thinking about things like repetitive shapes, right? So this is a simple graphic. I'm not going to circle all of those, but you get it. A simple graphic repetitive shape. I think that's nice. The point of view straight down where you have this human being in here working away. There's a couple of things that I think would make this a little bit better. I would do a little Photoshop work in this space, bringing that down just a little bit. When I say bringing it down, I mean bring the exposure down a little bit. And frankly, I would bring the exposure down on the entire frame, because the light is coming from this direction, outside of this light here. The light's coming from here, and you can see it throwing shadows right here. And I'd like to emphasize those shadows a little bit. So I would bring the overall exposure down. And the second thing is this little foot. This little foot right here. I don't need that either. So I would my hand slipped there. I would probably go across like this. You know what I mean? Across, and I would just eliminate that foot at the top. And that to me is a little bit cleaner. But otherwise, I like this picture. I like that picture. I love this picture. This picture to me is super solid. This is kind of a picture that I would see as being part of somebody's portfolio. I love this. And again, this is a solo luncheon against marble in Pakistan. So first of all, I love the fact that I cannot see this person's face. I think that's amazing. I love the fact that she's photographed in profile. The bird is like, you either lucked out or you're an amazing photographer, because that really makes the frame. But I also love the fact that the aspect ratio of this image, which isn't quite square, also mimics the tiles on this wall and on the floor. So there's a squareness to this that I love. I would probably bring down these highlights a little bit, and I would bring down the overall exposure of the image down even more, because I don't think you're going to lose much in here. And I just think this is a beautiful, quiet, private moment that has clean edges. There's nothing to distract. Everything is about right here. And the bird just makes it. So Selma, the problem for me is that you only sent 2. So I'd love to see a lot more, to see what this picture is, how it fits in, what does it mean in the rest of your work, because that's a picture that's worthy of consideration and more time and more understanding of what it is. But otherwise, good job. All right, Eric. All right, look, we've got copy. After I bought my first professional camera, I was looking for interesting places and activities where I could take photos. Again, photographs, not photos. That's like nails on a chalkboard for me. That's an invention of the modern era of like, I don't know. It's just, their images, their photographs, photos are like one step down in terms of sophistication in my mind. Maybe I'm being a jerk. I don't know. The female acrobat was part of a local event called Cirque de Dune. I became part of the crew and have been going back there every year since then. There are so many things as a photographer that interest me, so I'm always looking for opportunities. Through a friend of my wife who's a dance instructor, the man on the studio photo was someone I interviewed for a local newspaper. The city lights always fascinate me, and I got contact with 2 girls who agreed to model while walking around Amsterdam. Okay, so Eric, we got a problem, Houston. And that problem is where, right here, there are so many things as a photographer that interest me. Well, that's a double-edged sword. And what you submitted is a perfect example of that double-edged sword. So look at this picture. That is a beautiful picture, right? There is a beautiful color palette. This is a moment, like this person is literally clinging with her foot to this Cirque du Soleil type moment. She's inverted. The red is incredible. It's flowing out. Like, there is nothing wrong with this picture. This is beautiful. That's the first picture I saw when I downloaded your work. Then I saw this picture and I was like, oh, this must be the behind the scenes of this. These women are training for this. That's what I thought. I don't know if I'm right, but that's what I thought. Then I came to this and I was like, but wait a minute. Who's this guy? Nice portrait. I love the black background. You've got your key light right. I love the fact he's looking down and not in camera. Nothing wrong with this, but I'm thinking, wait a minute. Who's he to them and who's he to her? And then I come to these 2 women here and I'm like, wait a minute, what am I looking at? So there's 3 separate projects in 5 images, and that's tricky. In fact, I would say that's a no-no, but it all dates and ties back to what you said. I have a ton of interests, and that's a good thing. Being curious means you will live an average of 7 years longer than a non-curious person. So being curious is one of the most important traits you can have as a photographer or as a human being. So I like that. What you've told me here, you kind of skirted over it quickly. The female was part of a local event called Cirque de Dunes. I became part of the crew and have been going back every year since. Eric, there is your story. Forget about this guy for now. Forget about these 2 for now. This is your story right here. If you're behind the scenes and part of the crew and you can build a body of work about this, do that. And then this stuff will be waiting for you whenever you're done. So portraiture, and I could talk more about what I like about these portraits and not like. Just quickly, these 2 portraits, I see these as verticals, not horizontals. I want to see more what's down. I want to see the top half of her body. I want to see sort of what's around. I do like this. I like this light. I think that is nice. Maybe even a super tight crop here would be interesting, just for the heck of it to see that. But overall, I see these 2 as verticals. And again, if you're going to show a body of portraiture, I would commit to either color or black and white. So think about this. There were 3 different kind of assignments in 5 images with color and black and white. So as a reviewer, I'm like, what am I supposed to do here? How am I supposed to rank this? And I just immediately gravitate to these 2 images here, and learning about the fact that you have behind the scenes access, done. That's it. Just do that and put a body of work together that's just about that. Because again, if you can make work like this, make work like this. All right. That was Eric. Vin, let's talk about Vin. All right. Vin gave us some copy here from a recent road trip with my family. We've got about 15 minutes left, by the way. I think about 15 minutes. From a recent road trip with my family, this series of 5 photographs offers an evocative glimpse into the vibrant street life of northern India. There are intimate moments of daily life, from bustling streets where people share stories to the quiet moments we extend to each other through movement. These moments highlight the warmth and solidarity found in everyday interactions. This short series is a call to appreciate our common threads, celebrating our collective journey through life, and most importantly, making connections. Done. That's it. I like it. That's all I need. I got the location. I got why the trip is happening. And I got what Vin sees in what makes these images important. I may or may not agree. I may not like the work, but here it is in front of me. And there's something here, Vin, that I think you should focus on and build out on. This is an interesting things. Blah, 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 blah. These are intimate moments of daily life, from bustling streets where people share stories to the quiet moments we extend to each other through movement. That, my friend, is a very interesting concept. That is called the seeds of a good idea that you could build on for the rest of your career. The intimate moments we share through movement, and that can cover every aspect of being a human. That's about peace. That's about war. That's about common everyday life. That's about everything that we share together through movement. That is a fantastic project. That's not necessarily what this was entirely about, but let's look at the images. So one of the things we love about India is look at that color. Look at that color. Look at those at the dress that people are wearing. That is just astoundingly beautiful. India, I had a student in Japan who was from India, and she was telling me about street life in India and she loves street photography and how sort of chaotic it is, how colorful and creatively chaotic street life is. And that's kind of what I get from this. But wow, do I love this little moment happening right here. Like, I love to look at pictures within pictures, and you have one, hang on a sec. You have one here with the fruit vendor. You've got another here. You've got another here, and maybe even something happening over here. And that's the tricky part of street photography. Is the essence of street photography is finding clarity within the clutter. So I like this. It's close. It's not quite. I mean, I absolutely love that little moment. Maybe there's a tighter frame of that somewhere. Again, this reminds me of that first image, same middle distance from kind of across the road. We got some serious negotiations here, and very serious here. He's not maybe too thrilled about being photographed, but this guy's like, hey, I know the best way to get across town. So he knows what's happening. I like the tightness here. The tightness is very different from the first 3 frames. I like the fact that you're moving forward. That's always super important when you're in the field. And this, how could you not like that? But one thing, definitely, I would crop this, probably go down here below the Piaggio, somewhere like that. I think that's probably a stronger frame. This isn't doing much for me over here. I don't need that. It's a bit distracting, because ultimately, Vin, this is what you want people to look at. So anything that distracts from that is not helping the image, but I love the image. They look so happy. And, who doesn't love a bunch of young people, palling around in the back of a souped up Piaggio? I love that. Again, good color. Now, here's the thing. Improvements for you. These 2 pics right here, this and this. This looks to me like you're across the road shooting. Next step is getting in front of these people and getting in front of these people and saying, hey, do you mind if I make a portrait of you? Even if you don't speak whatever language they're speaking, you motion to the camera, you motion to them. You're going to hear no. Hearing no is terrible. It makes you feel terrible. Happens all the time. You got to get used to it. but I want to be in, I want to be closer. I want to follow up pictures to these. So your assignment is to move forward. Otherwise, good. Exposures are good. Clean up your framing a little bit with some of these, and you're good to go. You just need to go out in the field and keep practicing. All right. We're running out of time here, so I'm going to try to go fast through these. Glenn did a project on a ferry. And in Glenn's write-up, let me see if it's in here. Okay, so I didn't include the write-up, I don't think. No. Oh, there it is. Yeah, so he did this project, and I'm going to summarize this so we can go quickly. But Vin did this project on the ferry and then realized that he spent most of the time photographing the ferry and probably should have photographed the people that were using the ferry. And Glenn, that is exactly what I was going to tell you. This gives me an idea of the ferry. I would not mix formats. So you've got images, straight images, and then you throw in a picture like this, which is a combo. I don't need this. If you're going to photograph the new bridge being built, just photograph it with one frame wide angle and live with that. I don't like the stitching. And again, I see this picture and I'm like, get in front of those guys and show me what their faces are, make portraits of them, figure out how long they've been working on the ferry. As viewers of photography, we want to be educated or entertained. And so I know what the ferry looks like now. To me, this is more of a picture of a Toyota Hilux than it is about the ferry. I know what the ferry looks like because I saw this. And I'm like, oh my God, it's listing and it's made of wood and it looks like it's going to sink already. This is a ferry on its last legs. I love this. And then so these, I'm like, okay, well, like who's the guy in the blue shirt? You know, and he looks like he's maybe, I don't know, he's drinking. Who knows? What's that part of the story? And then again, this was your final image. And I look at this and I'm like, it's a Subaru Outback, like 2009, maybe even 2012 Subaru Outback. Great car, but it's not necessarily going to sell me on this project. But Glenn, you told me in the write-up how you felt and you nailed it, which is go back and photograph more about the people using the ferry. And oh, by the way, that could lead to an incredible story of meeting somebody on the ferry that lets you go back to where they live and you can understand why they're getting from point A to point B to use the ferry. So that's how good documentary projects happen, is they start with a kernel saying, look, I'm interested in the ferry. I'm interested in you. Oh, hey, what are you doing after your ferry job is over? And then boom, you're into a long form project. All right, Jim. Jim is a portrait photographer, and Jim gave us some caption informations. And the reason I included this was several reasons. So I'm not going to read through all the captions, but you've got, I'm just going to mention a couple of things. Image 1, transgender community. 2 is people in front of the Lincoln Memorial. 3 is people from a project at MoMA. 4 is a collection of portraits during COVID. And 5 is a collection of portraits examining racism in America. Holy cow. Jim, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, Pojman. Jim is working all the time. Take whatever Jim is doing to heart, because a lot of photographers sit around talking about making pictures and they don't do it very often. I am one of those. Jim is out in the field crushing all of us. So it doesn't matter where he is. He's got a project about portraiture. So that is epic. That is how we should all be as photographers. So in terms of portraits, one of the tricky things for me is, Jim, next time, give me 5 or 6 images from the same series instead of one from all the different series, because it's hard for me to gauge what you are as a photographer. Because again, look, you got black and white 6x6, you've got color, looks like color, maybe film, could be digi. And then this is a sort of a mixed aspect ratio. Again, it's hard to judge from series to series, but I tell you what I do really like is this is such a great idea. Tourists in front of the Lincoln Memorial. I love this. And I actually really like how you've lit this. I like this portrait. There's fall off here, but it's not too much fall off that I lose what's happening. So again, Jim understands the fine line between total fall off, shooting this at f2 or whatever, and these people are completely blurry, you can't see. But you know, this is modern tourism, is the selfie. Like, hey, what could make the Lincoln Memorial better? Me in front of the Lincoln Memorial. So I like this. I love this tough old dude with his tiny dog. This is a really nice portrait. Next time you submit, give me 6 of these, because that way I can really judge like how good this portrait series is. Love the concept of this one as well, of people, I forget how you, artistic appropriation. That's another great topic. But again, overall solid work, and incredibly commendable that you're out producing work all the time. That is fantastic. Alvaro Alberto. This is probably the last one I'm going to be able to do, sadly, but this is going to take a minute. Alvaro sent these because these are spreads in a zine that he's designing using the Blurb app, and he's asking me about like what works, what doesn't work, and what's the strongest spreads, zines, back cover, blah blah blah. So we're going to start here with the cover. Whoops. Go here to the cover. Does this work as a cover? I think this is the image that he's asking about for the cover, or it could be this one, but I think this is the back cover. So there's this one, and you can imagine maybe that there's a gutter down the middle here, which could be kind of a funky cut. What I do love about this picture is the palette. This cold blue, I just came back from 2 weeks in Japan. This is a very real color in Japan, and it is a beautiful cold muted blue that mimics the cold blue of the police uniforms or the guard uniforms. I love this. And Alvaro could have tinted this, I don't know, but thinking back on Japan, grays and blues are very much a part of that culture and scene, and it's beautiful and gorgeous. So I do like this. I love the fact that their masks are down, and there is this little thing happening between these two guys. You know, he's laughing. These guys have probably been out there for like 25 years apiece. So they probably know everything about each other. I like this frame. These are, okay, you got zine here. I'm assuming that you've got a gutter. This is the gutter down the middle. So you've got right page, left page. I could be misinterpreting that, but like I see this picture here and I wonder what are all these people doing? Like everybody has their phone up. Everybody's photographing something. It looks like they're photographing something up here. I have no idea what that is, but I look at this picture and yes, they're related. Train. So sequencing them onto the same spread makes sense in some way. But me personally, I would jettison this one and I would spread this out over the spread so that I can figure out what the heck it is that these people are doing. That's probably what I would do with that. And then again, similar palette, similar light, similar tone. This makes sense to me. Those images fit. I love the middle distance. This dude, I love this picture a lot. Look, that color and these screens screams Japan so much. I can't stand myself. Again, very simple. This image needs to be on this page and this image needs to be on that page. These people need to be walking into the frame and not out of the frame. The pictures are fine. Just flip them. And then lastly, this isn't good enough for your back cover. If the rest of the work looks like this, I want to see something stronger for the back cover. So that is it. All right. I think we have come to an end of this, sadly. Let me just double check here and make sure. 15 minutes. That was 15 minutes ago. Okay. I want to mention something. Let me stop my screen share here and go back. Don't forget, Create With Me, October 30th. This is going to be an interactive thing. Frankly, in 13 years of Blurb, we've never done anything like this. So I think it's going to be interesting. I build books all the time. And what should be relevant for you is that I am not a full-time professional book designer. I studied photography, photojournalism to be specific, which means you and I are basically in the same boat. So we can create together. You can build your book while I'm building mine. We can learn from each other and go from there. So we don't have a lot of time for questions, sadly, because I yapped too much. And you guys there's too many people. I'd rather try to critique people's work than answer questions. But let me just see. No, there's not something stuck between the bottom of my teeth. I had my teeth knocked out when I was like in middle school. And you know what? When they get knocked out and they're not baby teeth, they don't come back. I'm no scientist, but that's how it is. So no, there's nothing stuck in my teeth, but thank you for asking. Let's see here. I think we're almost out of time, but I was just looking for maybe one. Yes. Linda talks about dreams of visiting Japan. You should go to Japan. Japan is completely unique. I've traveled to quite a few places and it's beautiful and thoughtful and chaotic and quiet and fantastic. So you should go. Let's see here. Thanks for your encouragement. Well, again, thanks everybody for submitting their work. And thanks for the Blurb team behind the scenes for putting this together, because obviously I ain't doing it on my own. And they've done a great job, not only setting up the software, but also trying to get your questions answered and trying to keep me in a time limit, which in itself is pretty tricky. Oh, I've got 15 seconds. I think that's about it. What else? What else have I got going on? I am about to make another YouTube film. Don't tell anyone, but it is going to be on YouTube and it will be publicly available. And it has no relevance to anything. It's about context, just about context. That's all. So you guys, everyone is very welcome. Thanks for all the thanks in there. And again, now I can go back to being your friend. Remember, editing, you want honesty, straight to the point. That allows you to go back in the field and get better as a creative. So thanks again, and I will see you next time.